So essentially a poison is a substance that gets into the body by a variety of different routes. And the one that may surprise you is through skin absorption. It can actually be absorbed and go through the skin barrier. And it will interfere with the body's process in such a way as to prevent you from continuing to live. You'll see some examples of how some of these poisons work as we go through the presentation. Now Paracelsus, an early medical thinker in 1493, basically came up with this saying, and I'll give you some examples in a minute, of what is not a poison. Because really, almost everything that we inhale, breathe, drink, touch can be a poison if the dosage is wrong. If the dosage is too much, it can become very noxious and won't do you any favors. One that may surprise you as being poison is surrounding us as we sail. Water. Did you know water is poisonous? As I see it not in the front. I'll give you an example in a minute. If you take in too much water without the necessary electrolytes in your body, you will disturb the body's process and you will die. And in fact, that did happen. Here's one example. In 2007, a Californian radio station ran a very irresponsible competition. KND 107.9 was the station. And its competition was hold your weed for a week. So the idea behind this competition was you were supposed to drink a large amount of water and not go to the toilet. And regrettably, one woman died from taking in too much water. The irresponsible radio station had been warned by a nurse who phoned in when she heard about this competition, but nonetheless they didn't change it. The person that won the weed was sick for several weeks after the competition. This ended up in court with, I think, a $16.5 million judgment against the radio station. So water. Here's another poison that you're going to indulge in today, probably, not all of you. My wife and I will not, because we do not drink. The graph on your right is the number of deaths in the United Kingdom as a function of year directly attributed to excess drinking of alcohol. And unfortunately it's rising, which is too bad. Now, I don't think you immediately have to stop drinking wine. You can see over on the top right, there's a brandy glass there, and I gave a rough quantity and the time in which you have to ingest that. So take 50 of those in an hour and you're going to be toast. Moving forward a bit more, we have the gas chamber in the United States, which was for capital punishment, executing the condemned. This was inspired by the use of poison gas in World War I. I'm happy to say its last use is in the past, although it's not as far enough in the past as I'd like to see it. 1999. Really a very simple principle. The condemned is in an airtight chamber. In this particular one, you can get rid of two condemned at the same time. And actually we'll see another example of where that was used a little bit later. The gas that was used to execute the condemned in this case was cyanide. The condemned was instructed to enter the chamber. They would be strapped into the chair. They were told that when they heard the gas being emitted from the pellets being dropped into the acid solution that was there, and would release the poison gas, the best thing they could do for their own quick demise was to take several deep breaths. Well, of course, people don't necessarily want to do that, and there were some pretty horrific executions where people spluttered on and managed to survive in some great discomfort for some time, up to as much as 20 minutes. We're still executing people by poison. This map shows you where capital punishment is carried out today. The red countries are those countries that execute the condemned for whatever reason, whether it be murder or some other crime. The countries that I have listed on the left are those that are using lethal injection. No talk on poisons can avoid mushrooms, of course. You're all familiar with the the fact that some mushrooms are poisonous. There are 3 that are the commonest there. I've listed the Latin names. I'm actually not going to attempt to pronounce them properly. You'll see that the symptoms can be onset within a couple of minutes or leading for a couple of hours. A variety of different symptoms result depending on what mushroom you have, ultimately leading to coma and maybe death within hours. The next one is particularly noxious, the death cap. It has a latency period somewhere between 6 and 15 hours, so you can administer this and make your escape. The subject, the victim, will become quite sick, and it takes 2 or 3 days for them to die, by which time you've flown out of the country and you have your alibi established. You'll notice on the lower left, yes, you can see most of it. This is a sign posted in an area in Australia saying, do not pick death caps. They are in this area, no mushroom picking. The advice of those of you who like to go out into the wilderness and pick mushrooms is, if you can't identify it, don't eat it. You really have to be able to identify a mushroom to know that it's safe. And there's a variety of ways of doing that. Books, clubs. Do not pick mushrooms unless you're absolutely sure of what it is. This one here is the one that you buy in the store. Tetrodotoxin, fugu. Anybody eaten fugu here? Oh, brave man, and you're still with us. Well done. Yes, you have to make sure that you don't eat any of the blood, and you hope that the chef who prepared it did it right. You'll see that you only need 25 milligrams for the LD50. The LD50 is that dosage that will kill 50% of the population for a 75 kilo person. If you inject it, you only need half a milligram of this substance. I'm told that if you eat this food, you'll get some very pleasant, or maybe unpleasant, I'm not sure. You had a tingling in your extremities. Did you get tingling in your extremities? No, you didn't. You didn't get it. I will talk about tingling in a minute related to shellfish. Here is another example of something that is absolutely necessary for us, but if the dosage is wrong, it will kill you. Vitamin A. Vitamin A is toxic if you take enough of it. The lethal dose is up there for an acute ingestion, 25,000 international units per kilogram. You can also be poisoned chronically. It's 4,000 IU per kilogram every day, and you need to take it for about 6 to 15 months. But anyway, the bottom line of this is if you're stranded up in the Arctic and you're hungry and you happen to kill a polar bear, do not eat the liver of the polar bear, because the polar bear's liver contains more than the lethal dose per gram of liver. So if you have a little mouthful of polar bear liver, you've exceeded the toxic dose of vitamin A. This is also true for some seals in the Arctic. Campaign for him. Radiation is a real killer. Alexander Litvinenko was poisoning his tea with polonium-210. He died 3 weeks after the administration of the poison, and he died not knowing what killed him. It was not discovered until after he died what it was. They didn't know. And actually I was intimately involved in that particular response from Canada. I don't have time to talk about it now, but we actually had Canadians that stayed in the same hotel as he was, and we actually had a Canadian that stayed in the same room as Litvinenko did after Litvinenko had left, and he was contaminated by a very small amount. Come see me afterwards and I'll tell you all about it. Fidel Castro, the CIA came up with some ingenious ways to get rid of him, and this is just some of what they put together to try to get rid of. Obviously, poison pills is an easy way. I alluded to how you can put poison devices in cigars. You saw that on an earlier slide. Poison handkerchief, poison wetsuit, so that would be absorption through the skin. I love the next one, exploding seashells. I'm not quite sure where they thought he was going to go when he get an exploding seashell. The hypodermic syringe is a ballpoint pen. There was a picture of that shown earlier, actually. Thallium, put in his shoes and make that beard fall out. And the last one there is really wacky. Try and suspend LSD in the air, make it act irrationally, so that popular support is eroded and they can perhaps depose him more easily when he's lost the support of the Cubans. So, what's the most deadly substance known to man? What is it? I don't hear anything. Botulism. Botox. Yeah, it's the same thing. Actually, I thought somebody would say this. All right, now I'm wrapping up, and I said I was going to talk to you about what's noxious for dogs, and that's what I'm going to do. So, what is noxious for dogs? Obviously, medication for people is not good for them. Surprisingly, flea and tick products are poisonous to them if they eat them. A lot of our food is toxic for our favorite friends. The worst of that is chocolate. It's quite toxic. Macadamia nuts is toxic. Don't be persuaded to give them coffee or tea. Even avocado is not good for them. Onion and garlic not good for them. Milk and dairy products in large amounts. So don't be scared to give your dog a little piece of cheese as a treat. That is fine. That's not going to cause any problems. In fact, we do give our dogs cheese. And there's a couple other things there that are toxic. And that does bring me to the end of brief discourse on poisoning.